Pat Freiermuth sat around, didn't sign a new deal, isn't expected to sign a new deal anytime soon, but he did watch a huge tight end sign a massive deal. TJ Hawkinson agrees to a 4-year, $68.5 million deal with the Minnesota Vikings, lands him $17.125 million a season. That is, I believe, just above the highest paid tight end annually in the NFL, surpasses Darren Waller, has the most guaranteed money. I believe that was just over $45 million. Huge deal. Pat Freiermuth is seemingly next on that list of big name tight ends that will get an expected massive contract. Not great for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll go over some names here in a second, but your thoughts on watching the TJ Hawkinson deal? And I mean, it was expected that he was going to reset the market. Didn't probably reset it as high as many expected. Did you have higher expectations for the deal, or did you think this was a place you expected it to be?
Yeah, he didn't reset it at all. He got like $100,000 above the line. So good for him. I mean, that's a lot of money, but I didn't really expect him to actually reset the market. Like, this isn't even a, Deshaun maybe getting overpaid and resetting that quarterback market. Like Deshaun felt like, even at the time, like the signing hasn't exactly worked out, but I don't know. At the time, I was like, oh, that's about as much money as you should pay for Deshaun Watson for a quarterback of his caliber. Is TJ Hawkinson this good? Like, I'm not really sure I know. Like this, I get it. It's not always attached to performance, but I don't know if I would pay $17 million for TJ Hawkinson. Like, I feel like you could get a guy who's just as good. And I feel like Hawkinson's just as much a product of the places that he's played as is. Because like playing with Justin Jefferson and
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins.
Who's not a bad quarterback.
And Dalvin Cook. Like, that certainly helps you a lot. Like, I don't know, just as we connect this to Pat Freiermuth, like, yeah, I get it. This isn't always tied to talent, and the best player doesn't always get paid the most money, but it's really just the next player. But it's next player of like a certain I wonder what the line is for how good you have to be to kind of push the envelope like that and push the limits of a position market like that. I think Pat Freiermuth is good, but I think this season is going to tell us a lot about how comfortable the Steelers may or may not be, or how much the market may or may not be pushing the same limits with Pat Freiermuth,
Yeah, I agree. You look at just to kind of compare the two. So Hawkinson in 4 years, 2,587 yards, 18 touchdowns. Pat Freiermuth in 2 years, 1,229 yards and 9 touchdowns. Literally on pace to be exactly where TJ Hawkinson is in 2 seasons from now. But I agree with you. Like, it's about this season when it comes to Pat. How big can he be? The scary part, I mean, the good part, it's a really good thing, but when you look at the salary implications, it's a little nerve-wracking. The good part is he looks like he's going to be an animal this season. Like, by all indications say that him and Kenny Pickett have a crazy connection, that Pat remains Pat, and he's only going to get better as the year goes on. But at the same time, like, just like you said, like, is he the next one on the list? I think the bigger question is, do the Pittsburgh Steelers, are they a team? Are they ever going to be a team that resets the market? Are they ever going to be a team that says, oh yeah, we'll make you the highest paid player at your position? They did it with TJ Watt. They did it with Minka. Yeah. But even both of those, like, you kind of like saw like it was TJ's different. TJ was very different. And Minka was different as well compared to Pat Freiermuth. But like, Minka was the highest paid safety for like 35 minutes, and then it became Derwin James or whoever. And TJ was the highest paid outside linebacker, but you couldn't not make him the highest paid outside linebacker. Like, this is just what, like, you had to do it. Pat, I don't know if you do the same thing for a tight end. Like, a tight end's not a make or break position in the NFL. I think it's tough to imagine them saying, oh yeah, we'll give you Darren Waller money. We'll give you make life difficult money. And on top of that, this is the name of guys whose contract runs out the same year as Pat Freiermuth's. Chuks Okorafor, James Daniels, Mason Cole, Deontay Johnson, DeMonte KZ, Keanu Neal, Jalen Warren, Dan Moore, and Isaiah Loudermilk. Then in the following 2 years, depending on whether or not they pick up Kenny Pickett's 5th-year option, it will be TJ Watt, Kenny, and George Pickens added to that list. So they literally have to re-sign the entire team in like the amount of time with Pat Freiermuth on that list, who will likely get a massive contract. I just think, tough times to say, hey, this is, tight end's just a tough position to say, hey, we're going to pay you a boatload of money and we'll be okay. Everything will be fine.
Yeah. Especially when, Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward are not as good as Pat Freiermuth,
Yes.
but those guys waiting behind him, I think the urgency to sign that deal is much lower as well. And I mean, of those guys you listed off, like there are a lot of them that I think the Steelers could certainly live without.
Oh yeah, Chooks is gone.
Yeah, if like James Daniels, you'd like to keep him around. Mason Cole, same thing. Deontay, like I can't see them.
Yeah, he's a 1-year deal. He'll be 30 years old by the time that's up.
Right, right. Even DeMonte KZ, Jalen Warren, like if they're, I don't know if we're not, if we're not thinking it's a slam dunk that they would pick up Najee's 5th-year option, I can't imagine they would re-sign Jalen Warren to anything that's meaningful in a way that it would impact what Pat Freiermuth makes, and these other guys like Keanu Neal and Isaiah Loudermilk, like
they're small deals.
One of Dan Moore or Chooks is gone by this point. Like they're not hanging on to one of those guys for.
I think Mason Cole is the same way. I think a lot of them, but it's just like it's a lot of names to.
Oh yeah, you got to make choices.
Replace. Yeah, exactly. Like at worst case scenario, the Steelers got to find a way to, like, they can't just walk into the season and be like, all right, well, we let both of our starting tackles go, our starting guard, starting center, both of our safeties, our running backs are gone, and we only have one wide receiver now. So sounds good. I'm like at some point they have to replace him, which I'm sure they'll do a lot of that in the draft, but just. Where the Pittsburgh Steelers are, and we talked about like the window, and we've talked about the window. The window's open, but once the window begins to shut, things get very complicated. Like once it goes from like right now, everything is perfect. This is as prime of a spot. Yeah. Yes. Like if you are looking at an NFL life cycle, this is it, man. You've peaked. You have certainly peaked. You have all your big names signed already. You have your quarterback on a rookie deal, real cheap rookie deal, and you've no like strenuous contracts coming up in the next year. But 2 years from now, you're sitting there going, okay, now things are getting tight again, and they're going to continue to get tighter as that goes on. I don't know. Let me ask this. Do you think that Pat's contract would ever become an issue for the Steelers to keep Pat around, knowing like how they value tight ends, and they've been looking for a tight end for quite some time?
So do you mean like the negotiations would become an issue, or like the money's an issue?
The money an issue. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could absolutely see the money being an issue. I take that back, because I don't think they would let it get to a point where money's an issue, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Like they are. I think they'll be pretty hard and fast about, okay, we can give you 14, 15 million and you can take it or leave it, but we're not, like, this is not a negotiation. We can go up to that point, but if not, best of luck. Like, go get your bag. Someone will give it to you. But yeah, I don't think they'll be like, oh, you got us. Like we've got to give you that 17.5 or 18 million or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, especially over, like, how long would that would it be 4 years? Like
4 years, probably.
Yeah. Like, to get locked into that for 4 years, especially when you would have a quarterback contract and probably a number one receiver contract coming up, and then eventually, like, assuming Broderick's on the same path, you got to pay him too. Like, it's just a lot to kind of keep on your plate. So I think they would say, fine, like, you go get your money. Yeah. We've got two young tight ends that we're pretty confident in, and everyone can get what they want. Like, I'm sure they'd love to keep Pat around, but like, I don't think they're going to lose any sleep about it if he goes to sign for 18 million somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that there's part of Pat that, if the Steelers are rolling, it's tough to,
if they're winning,
it's tough to walk away. Yeah. From a team that, it's like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's never been the highest paid tight end in the NFL. I'm almost positive. And a lot of that's just because, like, why would you leave? Like, what do you What are you getting out of that? A couple extra $1 million? Like, cool. Go sell a Super Bowl ring, man. Like, you
Yeah.
know, there's
Yeah,
your couple
go get an endorsement deal. That'll
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in Pittsburgh, dude. Your name's Pat Freiermuth. You have a chant about you. You could go get any endorsement deal you want in the city of Pittsburgh, hands down. I agree. I don't know how big of an issue it's going to be. It's definitely something to monitor. And, you know, I think it's better that the deal, I think it actually helped out the Pittsburgh Steelers that this deal was not ridiculous. You know, if it was like $80 million, $19 million a year, you'd be sitting there going, okay, that's a tough place to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the fact that they kept it somewhat similar to Darren Waller's, I think you could figure that out a lot easier. But at the same time, Pat Freiermuth could go off in the next 2 years, and we could be sitting here going, okay, this is a dangerous place to be for what the Pittsburgh Steelers' future looks like, which is almost like a win-lose, is as weird as that sounds, unless they pull off a couple of Super Bowl rings.